Welcome to On the Point Podcast, a podcast for all things Overwatch with a heavy focus on League, discussing roster moves, weekly matchups, and the first round of the June Joust.
Yeah, we got the knockouts in. We know the
Yeah.
bracket for the playoffs over in the. I saw someone call it the Overwatch League Hawaiian Kumite.
This is Dallas's second, and I know they're going there for work. I know they're going there for competition, but let's be real. This is their second Hawaiian vacation in a month.
Yeah,
Lucky.
I know, I know.
It's not like they worked really hard for it or anything. They totally did.
Yeah, fucking yes, they did.
Let me just, I'm being sarcastic, but I know that there's always someone who's like, but they did work really hard and you're belittling. No, I know they busted their asses for this, you guys. I'm just really jealous that they're going to Hawaii.
Yeah, I
That's
get
what
that.
this is. Yeah, before we get started, I just want to say, this is episode 42. We've
Yeah,
been doing this for 42. It's life, the universe, and Overwatch. This is what we've been.
we already have like two strong title contenders in the Overwatch League Hawaiian Kumite and the Life, the
Life, the
Universe, and
universe, and
Overwatch.
Overwatch. Yep.
I still think the Kumite is like the front runner right now. But
Oh my god. All right. Well, before we can talk about the June Joust, we should talk about everything leading up to it. So let's talk about last week's. It says predictions because I copy paste from week to week. It's results.
also, we didn't do the introductions yet.
Shit, dude. You can tell what kind of episode it's gonna be by how the start is. You can always tell. I'm Katie, I'm the support main, and
I'm,
obviously I'm having brain like Civ this evening.
I'm CJ. I'm the tank main, and I have no idea if I'm going to be a positive impact on this or not. We'll fucking find out.
Well, like a good tank main, you're holding down the team so far. And like the bronze level support I'm out in the fucking weeds.
Okay, results. Let's get
Yes.
into it. First up, we had the Boston Uprising against the Paris Eternal, and Paris takes the 3-2 win. Next game was also a pretty damn close 3-2, Dallas Fuel versus the Florida Mayhem. This was a fucking banger of a series, this one.
Yeah, I was not expecting Thursday matches to be this wild.
Yeah, seriously. Although, like, when we get to the Sunday as well, like, it only cranks up a couple notches, but
Sunday was a full leave me here to die day for me, but that's, personal opinion.
yeah. So those are our first two NA. Now over to APAC. Guangzhou Charge takes on the Philadelphia Fusion, but sort of bucking the recent trend, Philadelphia Fusion picks up a 3-0 win. The Chengdu Hunters go up against the Seoul Dynasty, and Seoul ekes it out 3-2. And that brings us to LA Valiant versus Hangzhou Spark, and Hangzhou sweep it 3-0. Back
Look at how
over,
surprised we're not.
not even a little bit. It's just between like our initial opinions of the roster and then how little time they really had to put it together, and then the stuff we discussed like a week or two ago about what might be going on behind the scenes. Not surprising.
Yeah.
So next, back over to NA. Boston Uprising takes on the LA Gladiators, and the Gladiators pick up a 3-1 win. The Shock steamroll the Titans 3-0, and the Washington Justice, with Decay back in the lineup, finally start to iron out some of the issues and pick up a 3-0 win over the Florida Mayhem of all teams.
Yeah, I want to make 3 quick points here.
Yeah.
One, after Boston's performance on Thursday, I absolutely went in and changed my pick'ems to have a Gladiator win, and I'm glad I did. 2, Danny Lim's bold predictions by Pringles, just this completely insane, and this was one of my favorite things that happened on, these were Friday's matches, yeah? This is one of my
Yes.
favorite things on Friday. I about lost my damn mind because he predicted Vancouver 3-0ing the San Francisco Shock because breadsticks. And what's good? What do you eat with breadsticks? And I'm sitting here like marinara, and he goes chicken wings. And so they're gonna 3-0 the Shock, and Paris is gonna get into the June Joust. And I don't know what was better, watching Soe's soul leave her body or watching Uber just tilt so hard he was horizontal over
Yeah,
this entire take.
it was one of those things of like, one, I don't understand your train of thought at all, and two, am I the only one who's like, like obviously like chicken wings and breadsticks are not like a thing that I immediately think of as a combination, but I didn't even think it was that fucking weird. And then Uber is just losing his goddamn mind.
I mean, it was very much a reach, and it's like, all right, it's two pizza. Like, I have never ordered chicken from a pizza place, and I
Mhm.
honestly don't know that I ever will. Wings are not my speed when you could have stuffed cheesy bread. Even though Pizza Hut got rid of their garlic cheesy knots, you dumb fucks, bring them back. But that's Katie's opinion on Pizza Hut.
I mean,
Um,
no chain pizza has good garlic knots, though.
I mean, fair, but the ones that Pizza Hut used to have actually beat some of the garlic knots I've gotten from smaller pizza places.
Where have these
Like
pizza places been located?
out here.
Be- exactly. I have never found an LA place with good garlic knots yet.
The last time I was on the East Coast, I was 2. So,
Fuck.
haven't had that experience. Anyway, I appreciate that occasionally Danny exists in a different dimension and just brings thing over and attempts to speak them into reality. Again, I will forever remember the Houston versus San Francisco prediction in week 1, but this was definitely not one of them. And again, Uber losing his ever loving mind about it, I think only made it better.
Yeah, again, it was like mildly funny, and then Uber like came in like a fucking freight train, and he got really hot about it. Like he was losing it.
He really did. It's like, are you okay, buddy?
And you
Is
know
there
what?
something else you want to talk about, or are you just completely losing your mind over this?
And you know what? I totally get where he's coming from because I absolutely have those moments where sometimes you just something happens and your brain just devotes all of its runtime to trying to like understand what just happened. And it can be something stupid and innocuous, but like that, it's a place I have been.
I also have to wonder if it like disrupted his prep. Like, all right, I'm in the zone, I'm in the headspace, I'm gonna cast, it's gonna be great, and then you get this, and it just sends all of your processes screeching to a halt, and that was the first one to get going again. I mean, we've all been there where someone says something and it doesn't matter what you're thinking of, it doesn't matter what you're doing, it just completely nukes your mind, and you have to
Yeah.
just stop and marvel at the complete batshit insanity of whatever you've just witnessed. And then the processes don't all start back at the same time. It's one by one by one. So I wonder if that's not what happened. If Mr. X just rolled with the punches and Uber just stopped. Screeching halt. If
Well,
it threw off the Emperor's groove.
the other thing is Uber is he's a very energetic human being.
You don't say.
Like I wonder if that's all it takes, is just sometimes when the energy is up and it just gets pointed in a direction, it just goes. It's like a bull, he charges. Like
Regardless, this my favorite thing about this match, for one, the fact that breadsticks, despite being put on easy mode, still have like easier mode, still have not happened.
mhm.
And two, yeah, Uber said something about it, about fire being under like, something. One, that breadsticks still have not occurred, even though we now have the if a support boops someone off the edge, breadsticks caveat.
Yeah.
And two, just this complete batshit insane, so far out of left field we're in the parking lot take from Danny Lim and the various reactions. Like, I love it. It's beautiful. Third
Yeah.
thing I wanted to bring up, Washington Justice. Oh my god. As much as I hate to be the person who's like, oh yeah, one player makes all the difference for this team. Like, I don't want to sit here and be like, well, if they would just play this person, it'd be fine. Because, you know, Valid take, but it also feels like, and no one else on this team is worth anything, which is absolutely untrue. We have seen Overwatch League teams where they have one good player and the
Mhm.
rest are okay. And if you stuff the good player, shrug.
But
Um,
the other thing I wanted to like add to that is, by that same token, sometimes having that one extra threat enables other people to operate with a little more freedom. You know, a rising tide lifts all ships.
yeah. And I was actually talking to my roommate about this, who does not know much about League aside from what she puts up with from me. And I explained the situation to her, and she goes, "Look, the 1998 Chicago Bulls had a lot of good people on the team, but if you have Michael Jordan, why wouldn't you play Michael Jordan?" I'm like, that is a really good point.
Yeah, exactly. And like I
Washington should have been in the play-ins. They should have been playing Decay this whole last time, and I think if they had been, they would have had a much better chance to be in the play-ins.
I think so. I think one, you know, he like obviously I think Jerry's talented. I think he's a very good player and I think there's definitely a place for him on the team.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
I think the two things here is Decay just pops off harder and more consistently because he is one of the like superlatively talented players in the league. And then the other thing is I feel like Washington Justice's play was just better. I don't know if it was just shot calling. I imagine though that they've been working on how they've been approaching the brawl comp because there were just less mistakes.
True. And I did they have a week off? Did they play last week, or were both of their matches week before?
I believe they had a week off.
Yeah, that also helps.
Oh yeah, and the other thing is like when you have that downtime, you have the opportunity to like look at what the other teams are doing and be like, okay, these guys are winning with this composition. What are they doing differently to how we're doing it? And that can often illuminate things. And that's kind of
Yeah.
one thing that I'll get into a little bit more when we get to the knockout games because I think for Dallas versus Gladiators, that's a very key element in that matchup.
Yeah. Can we talk about Space's face when he was told that Gladiators dropping a map meant that, I think it was it Paris or Boston that got kicked because of it?
Um, I it was Paris because Boston was still in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that must have been it. Yeah, cuz that
Yeah.
was hysterical.
Oh yeah, and like it was a similar thing, which like moving forward a little bit to the next match over in APAC, we had LA Valiant versus Philadelphia Fusion, and if Philly went 3-0, they had a chance. If they dropped one map, over.
And they
And they
dropped it to the Valiant.
Yeah, and Fusion got a 3-1 win against the Valiant. So despite the fact that they won the match, like you could see them just fucking deflated in the the cams after the match.
And I mean, again, it's all right dropping a map, whatever, but dropping a map to the Valiant, and I want to say this is like the second or third map that they've managed to pick up in the season.
I think it's like fourth or fifth, but like
Is it? Not many,
yeah,
regardless.
I'm double checking right now.
They have
It was
maybe,
the only map they picked up in the fucking tournament cycle. Oh no!
and I think they only picked up one in the May Melee, too.
Oh my god, it's worse than I thought. That was
Yeah,
the second. That was
because
the
I
second
remember,
map they've won all season.
because I was listening to this VOD today while I was working,
Mhm.
because, I always listen to VOD when I work. It actually helps me concentrate.
Yeah.
And that was it. They were making such a big deal about, oh my god, the Valiant picked up a map against the Fusion, and then oh my god, it looks like they're going to pick up another one. Nah, Fusion pulled it out. But the
Yeah, and
whole,
like
yeah, this is their second map. Like,
yeah,
oh
and
my god.
like Valiant I will say did look a little better than they had the last time I sat down to watch one of their matches.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they look like they're making improvements. It's just a question of are they going to be able to improve at a rate where they will be able to catch the other teams because that's one of the things with the Overwatch League is that all of these teams are constantly fine-tuning their play. So if
Yeah.
you're not able to keep up with that pace of, of improvement, you will continue to get left behind even if you're not like fucking up as hard.
Like, honestly, the two teams that I think, like, if Valiant is going to play someone and have a chance, it's Vancouver. We're going to stick it. We're going to stick the two people at the back of the alphabet here and have them face off. And it's not going to happen because they're both bottom performing teams. But
Well, one thing I want to point out is Vancouver and London have the same win-loss record and map differential.
London didn't play this week, so they're not on my mind.
It's 4-24 and 4-24,
Fair.
with the
Yeah.
Valiant being 2-24.
Regardless, again, we'd be looking at another El Clasico.
I have
But
I have to like see the next time. I'm gonna look at the schedule really quick because I want to see the next time that Vancouver and
London,
London play each other. Like,
yeah,
I want to
yeah,
know the next time we're gonna get to witness the toilet bowl.
yeah. Regardless, and again, we don't blame the players. We don't blame, like, this is
Of
a
course
rough
not.
situation for them to be. Yeah, just, reiterating every time in case we have new listeners. If you're new, hi. uh, but yeah, just again, with situations like this, it's a difficult situation to be in for a player and for a coach. We don't blame them. I do the whole bitter X thing, but that's absolutely for the organization itself. So yeah,
Much like me with Vancouver. I've got nothing
fair.
against the players on the Vancouver Titans right now because they're stuck in this really unfortunate position, and they had nothing to do with the reasons I'm mad at the organization.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So generally, if we're sitting here and going, "Hey, fuck that team," it's not the team, it's not the players, it's not the coaches, it's the org.
Oh my god, I just found what it happens.
When's it gonna happen?
It's the last game in the season for both
No.
teams.
Okay, if they that was a noise. Uh you seem very happy about this.
Oh my god! Can you imagine if they're at like a perfect zero the whole way through, and this is like the fucking final battle?
I mean, you know what this is. This is season 1 Shanghai versus Florida Redux.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what this is. I mean, I just given the trajectory of both teams, given what we've seen from both teams, I honestly think that London will take a win before Vancouver does.
I feel like London has had a little more in the way of improvement.
That's why. And I think it's also going to depend on what our hero pool is, not for the summer showdown, but for the one after it.
Oh yeah, so I think London's had a little bit more in the way of improvement, and Vancouver, like, obviously, like, we'll see what happens, especially because London actually still has a player that is underage. Sparker hasn't come in yet.
When do we have any idea when he's going to turn 18?
Let me find out.
While you're finding out, can we find out the name of the tournament that I forgot?
The summer showdown or the countdown cup.
The Countdown Cup, that's it.
Uh,
That's the one that's going to have hero pools cuz Summer Showdown won't.
okay, Sparker becomes eligible in 2 days.
Oh. All right, we're going to see him in the Summer Showdown, I would imagine.
Yes, that will be interesting to see how it changes things up and who's going to be coming out or coming in. Because if memory serves, he's more of a hit scan player than a flex player.
Okay. I mean, fair. I think London could probably use another one of those.
Well, Hybrid and Shax both kind of specialize in that, and like Shax has definitely had a very he's had a rough season.
Yeah. But also Shax is more, if I'm recalling this correctly, he's more Sombra focused.
To a certain extent, but it's like Tracer, Widowmaker, McCree, Hanzo. Like, he's played all those at a very, very, very high level.
True.
I would think of those with him more than I would the Sombra. Like, he has a good Sombra, but
Because I'm thinking back, like, on the Valiant, him and KSF and KSP, Kai now,
Yeah.
and the two KS players were the ones that would come in for, I not sure if Tracer, but for Ash, for Widowmaker, for McCree.
Yeah,
So
that would be
just
mostly,
yeah.
yeah.
So a
Like,
Sparker specializes in, say, Ash, McCree, etc., it might take some of that pressure off of Shax.
well, yeah, but don't forget that Hybrid's also a hit scan player.
True, but I know far less about him.
I know a fair bit. So yeah, Hybrid. He played on a bunch of EU teams. Ended up on Team Doge before joining the London Spitfire. He's one of the only people in the squad who didn't end up coming in as a part of the British Hurricane.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and
I was
like
going to say, my
he
guess would have been British Hurricane just because pattern recognition.
Well, yeah, and the rest of the team did come in that way that's because that's how they got Ripa, Kalex, Hottie, Molfig, Sparker. Um, I forget who I forget who Ripa was playing for. Or no, he was Hurricane. Who the fuck am I forgetting?
I mean,
Oh,
Shax.
Blase. No, well, yeah, I know. Shax was playing for nobody before they picked him up. Like after the
Yeah.
Valiant dropped him, he didn't have another team before London. I was forgetting Blase.
Well, insert joke about you being blasé about his performance anyway. Like, yeah.
It's
Yep.
true.
All
Uh,
right. So,
so
yeah, when that happens, and I might end up eating these words in what, 2, 3 months,
mm,
but my bets are still on London over Vancouver. However,
mm.
I do think Vancouver will have gotten breadsticks by then because I think Pizza Hut Canada is going to add yet another caveat to get breadsticks going.
I will say I feel bad for the Vancouver Titans
Oh, yeah.
players just because like literally the biggest narrative about your team, the only thing that people are consistently talking about is fucking breadsticks. Like it's not even that you're on a losing streak or any shit like that, but like the thing that people are talking about the most consistent talking point regarding your team, that thing you work on like fucking every single day, most of your waking hours, is just whether or not you will complete the fucking conditions of a promotion. Like that sucks.
It does, but it's better to have people talking about breadsticks than how poorly you're doing.
Well, I
Because
mean that
people would, like, I know that, like, as a person, it sucks, but just overall team stance, it's better to have people going, oh, I want to see if they'll get breadsticks. They watch your matches. Maybe they like a player. Like, I hesitate to say no publicity is bad publicity because we all know in this day and age of the internet that that is some bullshit. But I do think, like, yeah, nobody's talking about your play, but when you get fucking rolled by the San Francisco Shock, maybe you don't want people to be talking about your play. Maybe you want them to be tweeting at Pizza Hut instead.
Yeah, you know what? That's a fair point, but that's still one of those things of like when your team is that much of an afterthought, that has to be demoralizing in its own way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, them and the Valiant in London, there's no way they don't know they're bottom of the barrel.
I mean,
Like, you know
they'd have
that.
to be
And yet,
trying real hard not to have noticed at this point.
I mean, you know that, and you still roll your ass out of bed and give your all.
Oh
None
yeah,
of
you
these
gotta.
teams have given up. So there's like that. I would imagine that has to be just the hardest place to keep your mental. It has to be so difficult to be like, well, we're going up against a good team. We're gonna do our best, but we all realistically know what our chances are. Like that, just knowing that you are the 3-0 easy clap team for other people has to be the worst. And so you've got to admire these players for going, we're going to show the fuck up and we are going to do our absolute best.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree, and it's definitely one of those things. Like anyone who says like, "Oh, it doesn't look like they're trying," just fuck off with that.
Oh, yeah, no, they're
Yeah.
absolutely trying. Please chill.
Yeah.
I don't see y'all being top 500 and signed to the league.
Anyway, next up, because that was a big ass tangent between matches. Guangzhou
Mhm.
Charge versus Seoul Dynasty. The Dynasty picks up a 3-0 win. Next, the Chengdu Hunters versus the Hangzhou Spark, and Hangzhou picks up a 3-1 win. Paris goes up against the Gladiators back in NA, and Gladiators take the win 3-1. Vancouver Titans go up against Dallas and are once again denied the win and breadsticks as Dallas takes it 3-0. Washington Justice versus San Francisco Shock is an absolute banger, but the Shock close it out 3-2. After that, we've got
The
these
play-ins.
yeah, we've got the play-ins. We've got the elimination matches here, and over in APAC, the NYXL take on the Hangzhou Spark and actually win it 3-1. That was
That
not something I
threw me.
expected. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when we were talking last week, it was like, yeah, well, New York qualified, but there's no way they're going to make it through. And now it's like, what? What?
Well, yeah, I mean, like we saw them pop off in that one game against Philadelphia, but like I still I still don't think that they're gonna beat any of the other teams that made it through.
No, no.
And like it hasn't really changed my mind about them as a whole, but it is a flash of brilliance, and we'll see if it's more than that when they end up going up against well when they end up going up against the Atlanta Reign this weekend. If they
Yeah,
can
well,
look, impressive, that's a step in the right direction. If not, back to the drawing board. Same old, same old.
I mean, you could say the same for Atlanta.
It's true, but they've been much more consistently good in this meta and improving. Whereas the NYXL, like I don't necessarily hold them in that same regard. Like if they continue to keep looking better, great, and then maybe I'll reevaluate. But right now, the performances still, in totality, aren't enough to make me sort of change what I think of them yet.
Yeah, New York is absolutely the upset getting into here, and I feel a little bad for Hangzhou for getting wrecked in front of their home crowd there.
Yeah,
Like, that
yeah,
sucks.
it's never fun, especially when it's like kind of the glorious return in many ways, and you were coming off the back of 2 wins where you looked strong and all that, and then this is how it kind of peters out.
Yeah. Although hearing crowd noise again, holy shit.
It's crazy, and I
Holy
love it.
shit. Oh my god, I have missed it
I
so
know.
much.
I had a similar experience watching WrestleMania earlier this year because it was the first time they had a live crowd, and it was just insane to
Yeah.
experience that again.
It's like, oh shit, people. Yeah, and I guess Washington Justice had, a little masked up watch party. It wasn't a live event, but it was like, hey, come chill, watch games. And so I'm sitting here looking at the gladiators like, well, well, come on.
Well, no one else is going to do it. Might as well be you.
Yeah, well, I mean, no one else is going to do it in LA.
Exact.
My
My
ex
point.
left
My
town.
point.
I know, because my ex left town.
You see the point of
So,
the joke.
yeah, it's like, come on, guys. Do it at Guildhall. Do it at Roguelike. Rent a fucking warehouse and roll a TV in. I don't care. Just do something. Uh, yeah, make like Bob and do something. Um, we then have Seoul versus Shanghai, and Shanghai taking it 3-0. And given some of Seoul's play this week, I'm a little surprised that they took it that easily.
Yeah, I was as well. Like, I need to go back and rewatch that one. But Shanghai, has continued to show that they're one of the stronger teams in APAC, even if they're not quite at the level that they were previously. And seeing them again, we'll see if they can make that same deep run in the June Joust that they did in the May Melee.
And I mean, still one of the stronger teams, but not at the same level that they were. I feel like we're seeing that with San Francisco as well, and
Yeah,
honestly, a little bit with Florida. Like, at this point, we don't have any one single team that's like, yeah, that one, that's the unbeatable team. We have a handful, I want to say 8 or 9 teams out of 20 total that are kind of terrifying, let's be real, and and a good amount of middling teams, and then just three not good ones. And I feel like that's not a bad balance, honestly.
No, like there's definitely more parity it feels than there has been in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, there's very few where you sit there and go, "Oh yeah, no, we're in for some 3 Overwatch. I'll see you in like 75 minutes. We'll be done
Yeah.
before then."
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more opportunity for teams to kind of move up or move down in sort of the power bracket. Like we've seen teams make sharp improvements or sharp declines. It's it's interesting. It's not it's not as easy to just write off certain matches.
Yeah, and every time you turn around, the IBM power rankings change, like every single time. So
Yeah.
it makes for a much more interesting season. And I would say it raises the stakes for all of the top tier teams and every middle tier team who's doing their best to break into that quite a bit.
Oh yeah, and that I think we got to get into that in NA because a
Yep.
lot of these teams really are. So, like you said, we have a bunch of teams trying to make their case as part of the top tier, and like pretty much all of these guys, except I would say probably Boston, are like teams that have at least been talked about as having the potential to do that.
I mean,
Um,
Atlanta has been what they've, everyone has called them essentially the gatekeeper team. They are smack in the middle. They are the ones where they
I
always beat the lower
well,
seeded teams
mm,
and they almost always lose to the higher seeded ones. That's been their narrative.
yeah, they're the upper mid carder. Like it's they'll beat they have consistently been like the B plus A minus player,
Yeah, they're the
but
bouncer at the VIP section.
yeah, and I think one of the things you have to attribute it to is one, consolidating more good players because that's one of the things about the Overwatch League is that the average, level of competition, how good these players are and the level of individual skill and understanding of the game has only gone up season by season. And so now they have a really talented roster of very high level players that has only continued to improve. But on top of that, I feel like you got to give a little bit of love to Unter, and the reason I'm singling out Unter is because he's their newest coach. He hasn't been a member of that organization prior to April of this year, so I feel like at least some of this improvement kind of has to come through him, especially because he was one of the coaches for the Valiant throughout the 2020 season, working under Packing 10, and was also a coach for the British Hurricane when they just swept through Contenders EU for like 3 months straight.
So he's bringing the experience and he's also bringing a fresh take on things,
Yeah,
as it were.
and I think, obviously I don't know because I don't have an inside line to what's happening there, but I feel like at least some of this is kind of coming through him, just being able to, bring his perspective in there, and add to the, coaching of Sefi and Legit RC, who have been there because Sefi's been there since the beginning of the Atlanta reign, and then Legit RC was there since March of last year.
Makes sense. And I mean, I think also this hero pool is
Mhm.
contributing to that. And again, you don't want to put all the
Oh yeah.
success on, oh, this, but if some teams do better with some metas than others. And we saw it in Dive, we saw it in Goats. They're
Mhm.
calling this, I don't remember who it was that Danny was interviewing. One of the Korean players said that this comp is called disease comp because it's Reaper and Moira and nobody fucking dies. They just keep coming back as zombies. And I'm like, I love this. I know everyone's calling it Neo Goats, and I know it's probably a little tasteless to call it disease comp when we're still in the year of our Lord coronavirus, but I love that.
Yeah, and like the other thing I want to point out too is like it is players stepping up. It is a meta that benefits them, and it is coaching. But they're showing off a really sort of well-rounded look. Like they looked good on brawl comps as well. Like they could take wins using that, or they could take wins using the double shield, like sort of pick comps.
True.
And
True. We should probably go through the NA results.
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Because first up, we had the Dallas Fuel versus the Houston Outlaws, and this Texas shootout goes the way of the boys in blue as Dallas picks up a 3-0 victory. Fuck yes.
Houston barely drew their guns. It
Yeah,
was this is a day of Overwatch being very difficult for me to watch. As a fan of the Outlaws, the Gladiators, and the Shock, Sunday was real difficult.
yeah, and like the Outlaws, I don't think they looked bad, but I think that they really like they knew what Dallas was going to come in and do, but they weren't a able to keep up with the tempo, and b I think having the like brawl, but replacing like having the Neo go to disease comp or whatever the fuck you want to call it, but replacing the Brig, replacing the Lucio with Brig, I don't think that adaptation was a good one, just because
Yeah.
Brig is easier to kill in a lot of cases than Lucio, and also like without this, the speed boost is so important to your team's ability to engage and re-engage, um, and yeah,
And the
like
sound barrier to keep them up in these ridiculously long lasting fights.
well, yeah, but you with Brig you have the rally, which can have a similar effect. So I don't like obviously it's not as much of an instant like get out of jail free card, but as long as you're not getting burst damage down, like it's still very good at helping to keep your players alive, especially because these brawl comps are very sort of front loaded in terms of damage if you think
Yeah.
about it, because a lot of the burst that comes through these comps comes in the form of cooldown. So when you engage, Winston jumps, Diva goes in and uses the micro rockets on the target. The echoes, cooldowns of the focusing beam and the bombs are what kind of does the most damage unless you're using an ultimate. The Moira has a limited amount of healing juice before she needs to start.
Committing
Uh,
murder.
yeah, so they're kind of front loaded in terms of damage, and it starts to fall off until those cooldowns sort of come back online.
Yeah.
um so having the ability to like having the ability to very quickly just instantly give people that padding of health as opposed to the armor that stacks, like it can make a difference, and I think it does. But I think Brig being slower and like your team not having the speed boost definitely played a part in this as well, especially because I think Brig is just a character that's better in supporting like sort of flanky or dive comps, just because of how the armor packs work at this point.
Yeah. And we didn't have, again, with Tracer and Sombra out of the mix, that takes out a lot of your flankier dive comps.
Yeah, so I think Houston came with a game plan. Dallas did better than they thought, and then they failed to adapt, and that's kind of how this spun out of control for them so quickly.
Yeah. It's, it was rough. It was rough. That was a quicker 3-0 than I would have liked.
Yeah, like obviously I'm happy about it being the Dallas fan, but it was still a quicker game than I thought it was going to be, especially when it came down to like I expected more adaptation from the Houston Outlaws, especially because if they could swap over to using that double shield comp more, I feel like that would have benefited them, because then you could lean on Happy's amazing hit scan play, and if you could like keep the Dallas Fuel at range, because we've seen that double shield comp is can be very effective in like sort of blunting the forward momentum of this brawl comp if you know how to play it properly. And so I
Yeah.
feel like for Houston, preparing that more could have given them a better chance in the series.
Yeah. But sadly, here we are.
Yeah, and the next match of the day was also a 3-0, Boston Uprising versus Atlanta Reign, and Atlanta claimed the 3-0 in this case.
That doesn't surprise me with how
No,
Boston was playing this week.
yeah,
They
it
were a lot more promising 2 weeks ago, and then this week it
yeah.
was like, oh, okay.
Well, I think the other thing is they were up against stiffer competition this
Yes.
week. Like the Paris Eternal leveled up, and I still think that was a match that could have been winnable for Boston. But I think Paris showed more flexibility and ability to adapt and threw Boston off. And that's kind of what we see with the Atlanta comp. Like basically, Atlanta can brawl, Atlanta can go to the double shield. Boston just had the one look, and if it wasn't working, they were hopeless. Well, not
Yeah.
hopeless, but they didn't have a second trick to pull out of their sleeve to sort of you know to get themselves back into this.
Yeah, all the eggs in one basket.
Yeah, and like if you can play the meta better than anyone else, like the way that San Francisco did in 2019 and 2020, or the way that the 2019 Vancouver Titans did when it came to goats, like that's one thing. But in a situation where there is a composition that is an effective counter, like you either need to really prepare that counter or you need to have more options. And like the Dallas Fuel have developed their use of the Doom Fist to sort of help them break the bunker comp. And we need something out of Boston, either a different approach to fights or a slight, flex from one of their players onto a different hero to sort of give them some a new look. Because right now it doesn't look like they're good enough with this to get by on their own strength with that alone.
And we'll see how going back to non hero pool play affects things.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see that with Boston because I feel like a lot of their players still have a lot of potential, and like we'll see what things look like whenever the new meta sort of reestablishes itself when we're clear of the hero pool.
Yeah, so it's a whole lot of we'll see, but that's 2 weeks into the future because I assume that we're doing another week break after the tournament, as you do.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, up next, the Dallas Fuel versus the LA Gladiators.
and Dallas Fuel claims the 3-1 victory, punching their ticket to the the University of Hawaii, like setup for the tournament once again. Fuck yes.
The only
And
not 3-0 of the day.
yeah, that is very true. And I will say this was interesting to me, and just because of how Dallas kind of like won the first two maps, kind of showed the difference between Dallas and Gladiators on the brawl comp, and then showed Dallas's ability to sort of adapt to the bunker comp when Gladiators began to foreground it. Um, because if you look at the first two maps, when they're playing the brawl comp, Gladiators held on to their ults more than Dallas did. Like they would wait and let Dallas use theirs first and then go for the counter to try and sort of take the momentum in the longer fight. So for those of you who aren't really like aware of the concepts of like alt economy and alt management and all that, a lot of the time with alts like support alts especially, going second has a lot of value because say someone uses a sound barrier to engage and comes in and hits your team with all that extra health, and then you beat after, it takes longer for the sound barrier to decay on your team because you cast it later, and thus when theirs is over you still have a little bit more to go, and thus that gives you an advantage in the fight like post ultimate. um and so this isn't like universally the case, obviously, but Dallas tends but Gladiators were tending to hold their ults a little bit longer to try and get that second ult and give them the advantage in the longer fight. Whereas Dallas tends to like pretty much use their ults and take the tempo at the beginning of the fight to either just push the enemy team back and take control of space and keep them on the back foot and just like allow them to go super aggressive, or to like push an advantage. And I feel like that makes a really, really big difference in this comp because like one of the reasons they're calling it Neo Goats is how important the ults and alt cycling is in these. Like, it's not like every single character or every single fight has the opportunity for someone to just click ahead from across the map. The team play, the cooldowns, the ultimates are kind of like the most important element here.
Yeah, and the risk of waiting to ult second, of waiting for your opponent to use them, is that you assume that there will be a longer fight. If your opponent is
Mhm.
super effective with their ult usage, there won't be.
Well, yeah, and that was one of the
Yeah.
things that you'd see play out a lot through this series is that the moment Dallas gets an advantage, they commit and go in super confident, and thus they turn, a slight tip in their favor into something way bigger. And even when, they're using it without a decisive advantage in terms of like someone being low or using it to isolate someone further if they make a positional mistake, you have to take into account that like with ults, obviously like if you can use one and win the fight outright as a result of it, that's great. But the value of your ult is not always necessarily the kills that you secure with it yourself. You can use it to take space, to contest positioning, to take control of the tempo of the fight, and that's what Dallas is really good at. When they have the ability to take control of the fight by taking an ultimate, by using an ultimate and engaging and just pushing in and putting the enemy team on the back foot and forcing positioning and forcing cooldowns and forcing ultimates to react, um, it leaves them in control. And that's one of the reasons they're so fucking good, is because they take control of these situations and continue to snowball advantages when they get them. And yeah, sometimes it causes them to use ultimates in like less than ideal situations. Like there are definitely times where they'll throw something out like after the fight's pretty decisively lost, on sort of the confidence that they can claw it back in based on one thing or another.
And
But
that
it's
doesn't always pan out.
yeah, it and it nor should it. But the thing is, it's definitely a good mentality to have, and I think it's a really good way to approach this meta specifically.
Yeah. This, for not being a rush meta, it's very good for rushing in.
Oh, well, yeah, well, this is definitely a rush comp. Like, just because you're engaging, you start brawling it out. It's like it's obviously like not the exact same thing, but it does play in a way like goats.
Fair. Fair. I still prefer disease comp, but we all know how I am about goats. And also because I thought that was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. And so the last two maps when Gladiators went to the double shield, they looked really strong on Hollywood, and then Dallas was able to make adaptations on Junkertown and take it from there, using the Doomfist, using the terrain, and like that was interesting because once again we see kind of like the chink in Dallas's armor, like the one missing ring in their shirt of mail. Um, in that the rush composition definitely does sort of struggle in terms of what it's designed to do versus what the Orisa, Ash, Bap, Mercy, all that, what the double shield comp is supposed to do. And that becomes very interesting when we go into our next matchup, Atlanta Rain versus San Francisco Shock.
And this one absolutely threw me. Like, I knew Atlanta had been playing better, but I was not expecting a 3-0 roll for Atlanta over San Francisco.
Yeah, I wasn't either. Like, I
I don't
thought
think
San
anyone
Francisco
was.
was going to win, but I thought it was going to be a very close game that could have gone either way. Like, I wasn't going to be super surprised if Atlanta won, but I was definitely in favor of the Shock.
Like, I was expecting a 3-0 or a 3-1 for the Shock.
Yeah, like I could see that. I definitely thought it was going to be a close match that the Shock were going to end up taking, but
Yeah, this was a rough one.
so yeah, it was really interesting to watch because one, the Atlanta Rain just played that well, but it's also like I feel like, and I know that Yiska kind of said like if the Shock lose this, their era is over, and I think that's kind of dramatic. But at the same time, I can't even really argue that it's like it really is clear at this point that while San Francisco Shock is still like a solid A, and they're still one of the better teams that we have, they're no longer decisively better, and it comes down to a whole bunch of factors. Like I want to stress that. Like, and it was like, oh, it's Nero, or oh, it's FD God. It like you're so wrong.
It's everyone. We were talking about this just earlier with the justice. Like, yeah, sometimes it is the difference of just one player or one specific person being able to come in and a rising tide, etc. But conversely, like, oh yeah, no, this one person is a problem. This one person is what it's never just one person. One person is definitely a factor because you've got a team of 6 and every person matters, but it's never make or break a
Yeah,
single human being.
yeah, and I I want to like I want to go into sort of at least some of this because like I feel like a lot of what I could talk about compositionally, you know, is kind of covered, but like so with the Atlanta Rain, Gator and Hawk have stepped up in a really big way. Kai and Pelican are kicking ass. Masa is doing a great job of like playing intelligently and staying alive. Iris is doing as well as everyone else in terms of getting value on that Moira. And Shock. So for Shock, like I feel like it really does come down to a lot of things because first off, I don't think like FD God and Violet are as good of a match as Moth and Violet were, like in terms of just their play styles and all that, because FD God's a very aggressive, like he's a Reddit Lucio.
Yeah, and Moth is a support player's support player.
Yeah, and so Violet is also a pretty aggressive player, and so like
There's no tempering in that support line, just in terms of mentality and approach.
yeah, like it doesn't, they don't balance each other out very well. And I also feel like Violet's positioning on the Moira isn't like at the same level as it is on other flex supports. Like I know his Ana being bad is kind of like a meme, but like his Zen especially, and also his Ana, I feel like his positioning is better than it is with the Moira. Um I feel like I definitely do think that like the DPS line, and it's not just Nero, it's Striker as well, or to a certain extent Glister when he's in there, but the clutch factor of the Shock isn't really in effect in the way that it was, and I feel like part of it's because they're not guaranteed better at the meta anymore because one, a lot of Krusty's assistant coaches, Junk Buck and 9K, have gone on to become the head coaches of different teams that of their own. So you don't have the same like brain trust of people working on strategy. Um, and the other teams have just gotten a lot better at it as well. Like
Yeah.
learning how to you know understand and play metagames better.
Like, we're not back at season 1 San Francisco Shock where they were solid, but they weren't the best. Like, they're still an upper tier team, but we no longer have lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I think some of it is like some of the coaching staff is not the same as it was, and I don't want to say that it's worse or anything, but you do have a bunch of very high level coaches with a proven track record leaving to start something else. You've got good players coming in that aren't necessarily you know that don't necessarily fulfill the same sort of role within the team as the people that they're replacing. So it has nothing to do with sort of their qualities as individuals, but rather just sort of like the team needs to learn to play a different way just because, the pieces fit together differently. And I think another thing you have to take into account is what we talked about before, because how Dallas will sometimes use ult in an unideal situation to try and win things back. I feel like the Shock have always been like some of the worst offenders on that front. But the thing is, they were one, like
They can't
they
get
had
away with it any longer.
yeah, exactly. Like they used to have players that were like one of, if not the best, like if not number one, then number two or three in literally every single position. And they don't have an advantage that decisive in terms of gameplay anymore, in terms of just like raw mechanical skill. And
Yeah. And when you have that level of raw mechanical skill across the board, you can get away with some otherwise questionable ult usage, shot calling, etc., because everyone is good enough to be able to pick up the slack wherever there is slack, and they fit together well enough to be able to do that.
yeah,
They can't do that anymore, and so a bad habit is starting to have consequences.
yeah. And I feel like the other thing is, for these new guys, guys like Nero, guys like FD God, there is a tremendous amount of pressure because again, two championships in a row, there are a lot of expectations, and I think you can see it every time a shock match ends where they don't come on top. FD God is about to fucking cry, and sometimes he does. Like this is a lot of pressure, and the shock fans have been fucking relentless.
Yeah, just everyone needs to fucking chill, you guys.
Yeah,
I don't want to sit here and be like, it's a game, because at the end of Sunday's matches, I was very sad and I had to go take a break and do something else for a while and pet the foster kittens and chill. Like, I was not happy. But I also knew that what I needed to do was take a break and pet the foster kittens and chill, that everyone had done their best, and that being mad at people or making it known to the players was unproductive at best and actively harmful at worst. So,
yeah,
you
and it
know,
also just shows a really like limited understanding of fucking anything. And also like Custa said this a whole bunch on his stream, and I think it's so true. Like, it's easy to fucking blame FD God and Nero because they're the new guys, because they're the ones who weren't on the double champ team. But at the end of the day, like, if you look at, there were a bunch of times that Violet died in a way that he straight up shouldn't have. There were a bunch of times where they as a team failed to adapt to a comp or played a strategy in a way that wasn't ideal. This was not something that happened because of one person. It is something that happened for a huge confluence of factors, both things within the shock, new people, a shift in the coaching staff, and, maybe a sort of loss of some degree of their confidence or clutch factor or whatever. And then you have the fact that the other teams in the league have all been straining as hard as they can to catch up.
and they're starting to get there. Like, not having, not being able to sit down and go, oh, yeah, this team's going to win super easy. Like, that's actually a good thing. It's tough when you're a fan of a team and you expect them to win and they don't. Like, it's tough being like, oh yeah, no, my team's the best, they're going to do great, they have this track record, and then getting punched in the face. Like, it sucks, it sucks. But I'm also going to sit here and say, up until this season, I was a Valiant fan, I've been a Gladiators fan, and I've also been a Houston fan from day one, and I'm talking to a Dallas fan. So
Yeah, yeah, you're talking
it's
to a guy
like,
who cheered envious before the Overwatch League existed.
yeah. So it's easy to have a good time when your team is on top. The real test is how you react and how you handle it when your team is not doing well.
And
And
that's
let's
what we
be
need you
completely
most.
real. And let's be completely real. The San Francisco Shock is not having a bad season. They didn't get into the tournaments, but they're not having a losing season. They're not performing poorly. It's not like being a fan this season of Vancouver or London or the people who still choose to be Valiant fans, which, you know what? More power to you. Have fun. I can't do it. Um, it's hard when your team's not doing well, but I think when you're a fan of a team that historically has done well and that is still doing well and just didn't on this fucking match, you gotta chill. Like, my God, get up, put on a mask and take a walk outside. Pet a fluffy animal. Pet a scaly animal if that brings you joy.
They're still
Like
7-1.
yeah,
The season might be halfway over, but it isn't fucking over yet.
they're seven, and that's a very, very good record. 7-1.
They have the best map differential in the league.
So that it just, yeah. I feel like, and I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, Shock fans are the worst, because that's not true. I feel like people, and I've said this before, I feel like you can tell in Overwatch League fans who has been a fan of meat sports before and who has not. Who is getting this as baby's first sporting experience, baby's first fan of a team experience. Because in my experience, a lot of people who have been fans of football, baseball, hockey, whatever other meat sport that you love and adore and follow, understand that teams have ups and downs and things change. A few years ago I was pointing to Cleveland Browns fans and going, "Yeah, they're 0-13 for their season." And that's terrible. But they weren't always that way, and they won't always be that way. And I say that as a Denver Broncos fan, and we have run the fucking gamut. So you and I and a number of meat sports fans come into this league with the experience of my team is not always going to do well, and that's going to vary season to season and game to game, but they're still my team. Like, it took a drastic act for you to drop the Titans, and it took a drastic act for me to drop the Valiant, because up until that bullshit, it's, yeah, this is still my team.
Well,
And I think there's a lot of fans who don't quite have that, who don't really understand the long game ups and downs of being a fan of a team. And
yeah.
I wish that they would take the opportunity to learn it instead of turning around and using social media to take their ire out on the players, because that helps no one.
Yeah, and like, so I think the other thing to take into account is that a lot of people, I think in the Overwatch League, there's just a ton of bandwagon fans that want to be rooting for like the absolute best team. Because like when you're talking about meat sports, especially in things um, like football, like baseball, like hockey, where like having your local team, the teams have been around for fucking decades. It is a cultural institution in the city, and you know about it and how it's going to a certain extent, whether or not you give a flying fuck about sports. With Overwatch League, a lot of, you know, I think people do kind of gravitate towards their local teams for sure and draw interest because of that. But at the same time, I don't think that that there's the same level of just sort of like emotional investment in these teams as of yet, especially because a lot of teams do have wholesale roster changes between seasons. That being said, like, even if there's nothing necessarily wrong with being a quote unquote bandwagon fan,
Yeah.
because like you're allowed to like whoever the fuck you want to like, whoever gets you excited and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. The thing where it becomes an issue is when like you get really agitated and take that vitriol out, you know, on the players and all that, if they don't live up to your expectations, because the thing is they don't want that to be the fucking case. Like, as someone who has played this game on in a competitive setting and who has been competitive in other things over the course of my life, I played in chess tournaments, I was a fencer throughout high school, and it losing sucks. Like,
Yep.
putting in all the effort it takes to get there, especially if you have, especially if you think that, doing something a little bit differently could have ended up with a different result, that shit fucking sucks. Whether you are demoralized or you're angry at, one thing or another, there is no one who is a harsher critic in those moments than yourself. They don't, unless they're genuinely fucking delusional, they don't need to hear how bad they are from you. And I don't think that applies to any of the people that people are getting mad at right now. Just, we're getting off track on the match itself, but like this shit just needs to be said. Even if the Shock are not the team anymore, they're still a really fucking good team. And the coaches and players are all working their asses off to try and live up to your expectations, the expectations of the franchise, and what they want for themselves. Don't fucking forget that.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that all of these players are young. I think the oldest players in the league are like 26, 27, and the youngest ones are 18. They're high school seniors. So Zachary celebrated his graduation on stage
I was
once.
there for that.
Like, yeah. Yeah, so just keep in mind, like, they're doing their best. They're young, and nobody is more upset about them losing than they are. You're just making it worse. So if you want to complain to someone, if you want to get mad to someone, valid.
Yeah, you don't
Find a
need to at
friend.
them on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't at them, don't put it in their attention. Like, support in, complain out. You know? If someone's having a bad time, you support them. If you're having a bad time, you find someone who can support you who doesn't also need the support. So if I'm mad that something happened, I go up to my poor roommate who puts up with this and I go, my team lost and I'm sad. Can we order Chipotle? Or something. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be that way sometimes.
And
Like,
that's what you do. I don't go tweet the
mhm.
Outlaws and go, "You made me sad." Like, no. They're dealing with their own shit. Nobody's
Yeah.
sadder about the Outlaws losing than the Outlaws. And that is held true for 4 fucking seasons. So everyone just chill.
And yeah, like I got as angry at the Outlaws' consistent fucking failure as anyone else. I've gotten angry about it on this fucking podcast.
Yep.
But I don't at them. Like, because like they don't need to hear my shit. I can talk about metas and comps and things that I think they should have done better, but at the end of the day, they're still way better at this fucking game than I am.
And I mean, it's not like they don't have coaches or something who also talk about metas
Yeah.
and comps and how they can
Yeah,
improve.
exactly. Like just shitting on them does nothing.
Yeah,
Anyway,
doesn't help.
back to the game. Just in summation, Atlanta Reign looked very well rounded and executed at a very high level on both the brawl and the double shield comp. And then the Shock weren't able to clutch. Their throwing good ults after bad fights continually cost them, and little mistakes continued to snowball against them, and they just didn't adapt to what they were running into. And at the end of the day, Atlanta Reign was the better team. Nothing you can say about that except they look right now like one of, if not the biggest threats in the June Joust.
Yeah, it was a great showing for Atlanta, and it was not a good showing for the Shock. And that's how it shook out.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. And we'll get into sort of what that means for the June Joust when we get into our predictions, but I think now we got some news.
We do. I kind of feel like our first thing we should have put on our previous podcast, but I'm on last week's, but I'm honestly not sure if it was announced at that point.
Yeah, it wasn't at the time we recorded it. It happened like the next day, I believe.
It
But
always does.
yeah, Ellie Vogt ends up retiring. Paris picks up Vistola. And frankly, I think they look even better with Vistola, which is fucking crazy. they continue to like bring in and integrate new players and still look better. Like it doesn't fuck with their team synergy or anything. They just seem to they're like Cell. They just absorb it and improve.
See, I went for Katamari, but yeah, I feel that too. I feel bad for Elevote though. He retired
Yeah.
due to a wrist injury.
Yeah, and
Like, goddamn.
hopefully he ends up getting, treatment and ends up being able to return at some point if that's what he wants to do. But it, again, as someone who is and has been a competitor, losing the ability to do that thing that you want to do for basically something that you don't have control over is one of the worst feelings just
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, that's it's one thing to retire because you want to go in a different direction or you're not feeling it anymore. Like there's many reasons to retire. This was not I made the decision to retire. This was my body said no, and it's better for me to listen to it than to push it and sustain an injury that will affect me for the rest of my life. Cuz
Yeah,
again, they're all young. I don't want to sit here and say they're all kids because they all look like kids to me. I'm 33, goddammit. But they're young. You don't want an injury that's going to be with you and cause problems for you when you're in your 50s, 60s, etc. And if retiring now is the best way to head it off at the pass and heal and do what he needs to do to take care of himself, it sucks. It's a blow to your psyche when your body tells you you're not allowed to do that thing that you love to do, but it is the responsible decision.
pretty much. And like, I've got nothing but props for the guy. I think he never really got the chance to shine in Overwatch League that he deserved. Like, I wish he and Lulzish got to play together. I wish that, you know, that I just wish things had gone differently.
Same.
And I hope we get to see him again. Like, if he needs to have his wrist surgically repaired or if physical therapy will do it, like whatever it may be, I hope he gets healthy. I hope he gets to, whether it's an Overwatch or another game, hopefully he gets to come back and compete again.
Yeah. We send him our best.
Yeah. And speaking of retirements, there is another one on the board. DM, which was rumored last week when we recorded, that has in fact materialized. That DM has decided to retire from professional Overwatch, and in his statement and in his personal statement, he sort of cites some negative fan interactions, this stress, anxiety, health reasons that he doesn't really get into it to a huge extent, and then just an overall need to heal. But you got the sense that he's still really proud of what he accomplished and all that. Like, and I think, you know, if he's going out on a note that he feels good about, that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah. And he had an incredible career and he's doing what he believes is the best for himself. And again, that can be an incredibly difficult choice to make,
Yeah.
but good on him for doing what he thinks needs to be done and what will benefit him.
Yeah, pretty much. And like, we'll see what the future holds for him. But if he needs to recover mentally and physically, then nothing but the best.
Yeah. Yep. We send him our best.
So, sort of moving into the future a little bit. I'm going out of order here, but fuck it. Uh, Shanghai is reportedly with his retirement after picking up Who Are You. With the loss of Erster and DM, they picked up Who Are You, and they're also apparently eyeing a DPS player from Talon Esports called Develop,
Okay.
and it is very heavily apparently, according to Halo, a lot of people have confirmed this. And he has only been on Talon for the past few months, but they came in second in Contenders Korea Season 1 for 2021. He's got a very wide range of hit scan and uh, of hitscan DPS as well as tracer that he can play. And everything I've seen from him, which admittedly hasn't been a tremendous amount, but everything I've seen of him and all that I've heard people talking about him has been in very positive terms. So I will be interested to see if and when this materializes, and sort of what role he'll play on the team, whether he upsets that sort of like Lip and Fleta starting duo that we've seen pretty consistently out of Shanghai.
Whenever there's a pickup from contenders, and I know it's often, I keep finding myself going, why would they pick this person over this person? Because some of the other names that you hear are just, oh yeah, this one's great, this one's great, this other one's great. Sigma comes to mind, which throws me every time because Sigma is a tracer main. But then you kind of sit back and go, oh yeah, people in contenders are as young as like 14. Some of them can't be picked up for league yet.
Some of it's that. Oh, sorry.
It's just, it's wild to me. And also, yeah, with season 7 of the Overwatch League, when that rolls around, keep an eye out for some of these crazy contender names to be coming up when they are legally of age. And also watch contenders because it's some damn good Overwatch with one of my favorite casting duos.
Yeah, and I want to add into this that like part of it is, the age thing and all that, and then you have the other thing is you don't necessarily, like, even if someone's popping off a lot, you don't know what necessarily the coach is looking at, because as someone who has been in that coach manager role before, having someone who will listen and who is coachable and has like sort of the right attitude also makes a lot of difference when you're selecting someone. And also just what things look like with them in the roster, like what sort of their vibe with the team, like there's a lot of things to take into consideration, even between two like equally mechanically skilled players.
Yeah, you're trying to find the right piece of the puzzle, and skill is only one aspect of that.
Yeah, you want someone who can bring game sense to it, who can and will learn. There's a lot of factors. So we'll see if that ends up happening. We'll do the customary Reddit check.
Yep.
However, we did have one thing get confirmed while we were recording, which is Halo and a few other people reported that the Guangzhou Charge were going to be parting ways with Neko, their only remaining coach, at some point in the near future. And then a few days after, or a few days previously to now, rumors sort of came through that Guangzhou is expected to promote the coach manager of their academy team, UP Academy, which is short for Ultra Prime, which I'm just like, it's just
Which
like
Autobot is that?
it's like throwing a bunch of like My Hero Academia and Transformers buzzwords in a blender, and I love it.
Which
Um,
Autobot is that?
yeah,
It's just, I need to know. Which
yeah.
one was Ultra Prime?
The coach in this particular case is named Extra, and he has, yeah,
I'm sorry, Extra used to coach for Ultra Prime.
yes,
Nothing against the man, just that particular combination of names is just chef kiss.
it's pretty fucking great. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, they parted ways with Neko, and then on top of that, they have promoted Extra after trialing him in the June Joust cycle, and they saw enough improvement that they decided to promote Extra to the uh, assistant coach position, and effectively he will be the team's only coach until as they continue the hunt for a new coaching staff, basically.
Okay. So we're no longer at nun coach with left Choi, but we
We've
still
gone
need
from nun
coaches.
coach to extra coach.
The extra coach. It can't be extra if he's the only one.
He himself is extra. He's just a lot.
I love this. I
I, th-
just
I thought
I
you
love
would.
it. I
Like,
love it so much. That's why you didn't put the name in the notes, isn't it?
yes. Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, sometimes you just know when you see something that it's gonna land for someone. Like, me and a buddy were on a road trip one time, and we were just listening to the Baby Driver soundtrack, and the song starts playing, and I turned to him. So this song is called Hocus Pocus by Focus, and he just immediately cracked up, which is an awesome song, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure. I just, yep. Yep. Sometimes you just sit there and go, ah, life found a way.
Yeah. Speaking of life finding a way, Funny Astro has finally found his way through the visa process and is reportedly, a few, like yesterday, I believe, was reported to be on his way to Korea. So we may get to see him in the lineup during the Summer Showdown, which just kind of begs the question of, like, as these Western elements of the Philadelphia Fusion team, who, as they sort of start coming back into the lineup, what's this team going to end up looking like?
We'll find out.
I'm excited to
We'll,
find out.
yeah. I'm also kind of wondering what the Fusion University team is going to look like. Is it just going to go away?
No,
Or are they going
I,
to
I,
fill things up?
I think they're going to fill things out, but like a roster that fucking strong just couldn't be allowed to stand in contenders indefinitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
So,
because it's like,
yeah,
oh yeah, most of them, American Tornado, most of British Hurricane, the other one
yeah,
got pulled up. Everyone else has a chance. Fusion University shows up, motherfucker.
pretty much. It's just one of those things where it's just like, I have an army. We have a Hulk.
Yeah,
Like,
kinda. Except everyone on the team is a Hulk.
it's
Everyone. It's a team full of Hulks. It's Planet Hulk, but they work together.
it there was a Marvel event called Fear Itself a few years back, and I want to say like 2014 or 2015. But like it was evil ancient Norse god comes and like worlds getting destroyed and all that. And so the way that they get the Avengers up to the power level to face this guy is they give them all suits made out of the same metal as Thor's hammer.
Okay.
And it's one of those things that it has to be like they need an excuse to immediately not have them have those suits anymore as soon as the event is done.
Yeah, pretty much. Just, oh my god. Like, I get it, but also, goddamn.
Yeah,
That's
I know. And like that's basically what that incarnation of Fusion University is. It's just a bunch of it's just Overwatch with fucking Uru war suits.
yeah. Yeah. Well, again, as much as I love Fusion University and just them going bug nuts, I do think the contender scene will benefit from a Fusion University that's more balanced to the contenders scene and not, a complete anvil on one side of the
Yeah,
scale.
as opposed to being able to slap a good number of Overwatch League teams. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about how it's better for the league itself to have more parity, and it's also better for contenders to have parity. Like, it's great to have teams like British Hurricane, and I know they just got called up to London, but British Hurricane, American Tornado, like the ones that for a season or two were the movers and shakers, but it's also good not to have them be so far ahead that they are considered unbeatable. They're top tier, but they're not just gonna walk up and slam you into the ground. Fusion University is shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Fusion University is playing in a lower weight class and they shouldn't be. I love them, and again, I love that the organization stepped up for their players who were having visa issues and went, "We got you, fam. Play in the minor leagues for a little bit and we'll bring you back up to major when the paperwork is complete." Again, I appreciate that the organization did that. It's really unfair to Contenders EU, but I do appreciate an organization looking out for its players.
Yeah, and like at the same time, getting to test yourself against that, it's a good little barometer. He gives you some ideas, and a lot of the time, it those that the tape you get from that is very valuable in terms of learning how to improve. So hopefully, it ends up being a net positive for the scene overall, despite the fact that yeah, it does kind of feel like taking lunch money.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of funny to watch, except when you stop and consider the feelings of the people that they're playing against, and then it's still funny, but you feel bad.
Little bit.
That's
Uh,
where I it's like, "Oh no, this is just gonna be painful." Like, this is funny to watch, but
yeah. Speaking of things that are going to be funny and or fun to watch, both. Pine, he is going to be competing in the Widowmaker 1v1s that are going to be happening during the June Joust.
is it sad that my first thought was, "Oh, are they putting him up against Bren? Is he gonna be the show match?"
Oh my god, he'd have so much fun with it too, wouldn't he?
He would. He would. I don't think he'd take it as an insult.
No,
He
like
would.
he's a big memer to begin with.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to remember who it was that they put Bren up against him in. I want to say a Pharaoh 1v1. I
I
can't
think it
remember.
was. I want to say it was Apply.
Might have been. I just remember like the interviews going into it, and he's like, "I don't know who Bren is." I'm like, That's perfect. That's probably true and accurate, but it's so fucking perfect.
Uh,
Anyway,
side
Bren,
sideshow played a 1v1 against Yaki for Farah.
that was it. That was it. I'm so used to Bren doing these things that when Sideshow does it, I'm like, oh yeah. Give me some mythology lessons while you're at it. Please don't. Please don't. Please don't. Yeah. So I'm excited. It's I think the first time they did Widowmaker 1v1s during the All Star, I was just bored off my ass. And then the second time they did it, they let all the other players like crowd behind them and cheer and make faces, and that made it incredible.
Oh hell yeah!
And I miss that. I miss just the sheer amount of shitbird that was going on there because Widowmaker 1v1s are absolutely a showcase of skill and precision, and also sometimes it's like watching golf. So it's a showcase of skill and precision, but there's not a lot happening. So again, I appreciated kind of the, for lack of a better term, the sideshow the second time that they did it. And then I feel like when we've had the seasons from home, the 1v1s were, I don't know why I found them more fun, but I did. So yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. And
And
I'll be interested to see because obviously like they're not trying their hardest in 1v1s like this. They're there for fun, but it will be kind of the first look we get of Pine back on an Overwatch League stream competing against the Overwatch League's other top hit scans, and it's an opportunity to like see at the very least how the mechanics stack up because it's definitely not going to be him trying his hardest. It's not going to be the enemy trying their hardest, and it's not them doing it in the setting that they would in an actual game. But it's the first look, so that's kind of cool.
isn't there like a multiple thousands of dollars cash prize for the Widowmaker 1v1?
I mean, yeah, I believe so. And
I'd
look,
be trying my hardest.
I'm just saying they tend to have fun with it. I'm not
True.
saying they're not going to try. I'm just saying it's not the same thing.
Very, very true. Anyway, so that should be fun, and that's gonna be next week. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, this coming week.
I next games we see, but you're right. This coming week, I don't know why my brain decided that this weekend didn't count as this week, but yes, that.
So yeah, for the record, the for the Widowmaker 1v1, let me just refresh my memory of who we're gonna see doing it.
Yeah, because they announced it, didn't they?
Yes, they did. It's gonna
Like
be
we
taking
thought it would.
place Saturday. And
Let's see, what do we have? Yeah, June Joust details, Widowmaker 1v1, pick'ems, and all this fun stuff.
they haven't said what the bracket's looking like.
Yeah, just the 1v1 will take place on the 12th at 5 p.m. Pacific before the title match and involve players from the 4 qualifying teams.
Well,
And that's it.
so then it's probably going to be like Lip, Pine, Kai, and I guess Flora's
Yeah.
Flex, isn't he?
Is he? I was going to say, who is the hit scan for New York? I'm just so used to it being Jonak.
Oh
Yes, I
no,
know
no,
Jonak's a support player. That's the joke.
Flora is the head scan. My bad.
Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
that should be interesting.
yeah,
Let's go wild. My bet's on Kai.
I big boss. Let's go, and not just because Dallas, but because it's Pine. I just want to see him pop off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it'll be fun either way. Just in terms of who do I think will win, it's probably going to be Lip, but I'm a throw down for Kai. You can't
Mhm.
underestimate the man.
Oh, absolutely, dude, fucks.
Yeah. Alrighty. I
So
think we have one more piece of news, and we talked about this at length, but we're gonna talk about it some more. And I'm gonna let you take this one because I did not see the actual tweets.
so basically in the aftermath of the June Joust knockouts, both Dante and Nero ended up expressing their frustrations with sort of the negative fan reactions and the fan tendency to like look for people to blame and I'm sorry. I, I was looking for the tweets to have the exact thing, and I just see from Swing Chip that just says, "Does anyone want to hear about how Sly made butter straight out of the tub yesterday?"
If you're not following Swing Chip, you need to. Even
Yeah.
if you're not a Florida fan, it's it's A plus content, and they're so good.
So a bunch of the just apparently a bunch of them went out to dinner yesterday, and the restaurant gave them a bread basket and a small tub of butter. And before anyone could correct them, Slime said, "Ooh, ice cream!" Stabbed his
Oh
fork
no!
into the butter and just ate a scoop of pure butter.
Oh no! I think my brother used to do that when he was like
Why
4.
would you think it's ice cream if it's coming with the bread?
Was he doing a bit?
I from the way Swing Chip is talking about it, I don't think so.
I want to know how he reacted. Just like, well, how's that butter ice cream?
I don't fucking know, dude. Anyway,
Oh,
so Dante and Nero both kind of expressed frustration with the fan reaction, the way fans tend to kind of come after people and flame them, and just in general the the difficulties of kind of dealing with a fandom that can really turn on you in a very short period of time. And it's, it's what we talked about previously. I'm trying to find the exact tweets. Okay.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I
just
found
oh,
Dante's.
go
It's
for
so
it.
tilting how people always look for someone to flame after a loss. So many heroes are dependent on how the rest of the team plays, and it feels impossible to succeed on certain heroes when the team isn't functioning as a whole. Wish people realized this before being so loud.
Yeah, again, we go back to like one person can make a difference, but it's not always just the one person.
Yeah, it's
Like you
like we
don't win
said.
or lose on the back of a single player. This is a team game.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we said, it's valid to be upset after your team loses. It's valid to be angry. It's valid to be sad. Like you're invested in something and it didn't go well. That happens. It's not okay to take it out on the people who were playing. It's not. Go yell at the cloud, go scream into the void, go pet an animal of your choice that's safe for you to pet. Just just find your chill somewhere else because again, that is non-productive at best and actively harmful at worst. Stop doing it. I'm amazed that any of the players are still on social media when people treat them like that.
And I mean, a lot of them probably won't be if it keeps up like this, just because like, again, people beat themselves up enough. You don't need to just having that kind of negativity and having that sort of like access to people, and it's just a barrage of fucking disgusting hate and shit like that. I can only imagine what that does to you just mentally.
Yeah, just yeah. It's just, you want them to do better, support them.
Yeah, no, it's like I said before, like it's times like these where your team needs you the most. If because and obviously, it's not like DBZ, like lend me your energy or, power of friendship or what the fuck ever. But just being able to stop kicking yourself can sometimes make a big change.
Yeah. We so much of this game is, yeah, it's mechanical skill and yeah, it's team comp, but a lot of it is being able to pull yourself back from a bad situation, being able to find your calm, to pick yourself up, to keep going. This is why we talk about tilting being a bad thing, because you lose all of that. So, yeah, maybe don't tilt at your team, maybe help them and they'll do better.
Pretty
Like,
much.
even just sending them gifts of cute kittens or something. That's a good thing to have in your
Yeah,
mentions.
and even if you think that an individual is like part of the problem, don't don't come at them directly. That's not okay.
Like, we sit here and we analyze, like, yeah, this person could have done better, this person needs to do that, but also we don't send anyone our podcast and go, we talked about you, you should listen. No, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, like way back when fucking Kai Kai was still the head coach of Dallas, I didn't like at him and send him like anything that I did to be like, hey, I just shit on you again. Fuck. Like, why the fuck would I do that? What does that accomplish?
So much of this is just, what does that achieve? And the answer is nothing, or the exact opposite of what you want. Why perform for
Mhm.
fans who hate you?
Like what? Well, the other thing is, like, if you hear something over and over and over again, you start to internalize it.
Yeah. So
So
yeah, it's just, it's thumper rules. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
That's all it really
Yeah.
comes down to. Just don't be a dick.
Yep.
Anyway,
Find someone else to rant at.
yeah.
That's okay.
Anyway, shall we get into the June Joust itself at last and finally start getting into our predictions here?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
first game on the docket is the NYXL versus the Atlanta Reign, and I feel comfortable saying that the Atlanta Reign will end up taking that.
Oh yeah. Like, I honestly, I would love to see New York win the whole thing just to be completely bug nuts.
Because
Like,
you want to watch the world burn.
I do. It's fun sometimes. Sometimes I just sit here and go, ah, yes, a refreshing bit of chaos. That's why I enjoy watching Danny make predictions so often, because he just goes into some alternate dimension and then brings them back. And it's fun to just see everything go nuts. It's also the reason that I make puns at people, to watch things happen. But yeah, no, as much as I would love to see New York just run train and set everyone's brackets on fire, I don't think that's going to happen. I do think that they are kind of the bottom of the barrel here. I'm expecting an immediate double loss from them. I'd like to see them put up a fight, but I don't think they're going to get much further than the losers bracket.
I agree. And then next we have the Dallas Fuel versus the Shanghai Dragons.
The
And
repeat, the hoedown, showdown, throwdown.
yeah, and I think Dallas is going to take the win. It's probably going to be pretty competitive though.
I can see I can see our final match being either Dallas Atlanta or Dallas Shanghai, because I think in terms of hoedown, showdown, throwdown, like if this winds up happening, I think Atlanta versus Shanghai is going to be one of the these teams are very close together in skill right now. This is going to be the nail biter. This is going to be, we're tying whatever the 2CP map is, and we're going to a map
Oh, I
6.
think
We're
that's
going to tie
true.
Volskaya again.
I think that's true. Like whichever combination of these three teams ends up playing each other in the finals.
Oh, I think Dallas has it over Atlanta.
I think the only reason I'm kind of a little the reason I'm a little nervous about the Dallas versus Atlanta match is because Atlanta does have that double shield polished to a very high level, and basically the way I think it's going to go here's my prediction. Atlanta beats New York, Dallas beats Shanghai, and in the losers bracket, Shanghai beats New York. New York's out. Going back up to the upper bracket, Atlanta versus Dallas. Atlanta wins 3-2. Dallas goes down to Shanghai. Dallas wins again, rematch with Atlanta in the finals, and then Dallas wins.
See, you like your own little bit of chaos too.
Because the thing is, I think with the Atlanta Reign, they present out of these teams the most well-rounded approach here. They can pull out either of these and look good. And the other thing is, if you look at if you look at Dallas, they have made adaptations to the to deal with the double shield, but they have struggled. And so I think what's going to happen is Atlanta's going to end up beating them the first time around, and then they will have figured a new approach out, some new wacky Dallas fuel shit, like just rush in the fucking lab with some test tubes, will concoct something, and Atlanta will maybe not lose the series to it, but lose a map to it, and that'll be sort of decisive.
Okay, I need you to actually fill out a bracket this time around because
I
I
li-
want this
yeah,
immortalized and I want to see how it shakes out versus reality because I think you've painted a very, I don't want to say accurate because we're not there yet.
plausible.
Thank you. That's the word. I think you've painted a very plausible view of reality. I do think that our final match is going to be Dallas versus Shanghai again. I think Shanghai was not happy coming in second, and I think they won it. And I think they won it enough to give them an edge.
I think it can make a difference. I just think the Western teams right now have had a much higher standard of competition to play against with how good a bunch of these teams have looked in this meta.
Fair. Fair. Yeah, but I think we're both still picking Dallas for the final, for the winner.
Yeah, though I will say I wouldn't be shocked if it was Atlanta either.
This is also fair. But yeah, this either which way, we're in for another hell of a tournament.
Yeah, unless someone goes completely belly up, I think we're going to have a lot of very interesting matchups over the course of this weekend, and I'm genuinely really excited to watch it all play out.
Honestly, just for chaos's sake, I fully am expecting someone unexpected to go completely belly up. I am.
It's totally possible. Like, the thing is, a lot of these teams are very talented and have a tremendously capable coaching staff behind them. Like, the upset potential is absolutely there, but I don't see any of these teams except New York really being behind or exploitable in a way that they're just going to get shut out in, decisive fashion.
Fair. All right. Well, we'll fill out our brackets and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, really, I don't see any team outside of New York having an exploitable weakness or, just being behind enough compared to the other teams here that they have the potential to lose really decisively in, the two matches needed for them to make a quick exit. I could be wrong, obviously, but I even in the case of like Shanghai and um, and Atlanta both having the shield comp say that they can bring it out to the extent that Dallas really does struggle with it, considering that the rush comp is what works for them and all that. Say, the Doomfist adaptation really doesn't do anything for them. I still think if they get knocked down, they'll take they'll take a game against New York and then end up going into the and then end up at least having another crack at it.
Yeah. They get knocked down and they get up again because they're never going to keep them down. I I had to. I had to. Yeah.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Much
Yes, well
like
we
Justin
finally
Gaethje.
yeah, well we finally managed to inflate this one so it'll do that. So it's
I
definitely
know.
better being a fan of a Texas team this year.
It really, really is.
It's so much better. I'd still be a fan anyway, but it's nice to make it out of the bottom 3 stoplight. And I know it hasn't been a stoplight since season 1, but that's still where the brain goes.
Well, I mean, if you look at the color scheme that we had for like some of the bottom tier teams, like until Washington kind of clawed their way back up. Like let's just look at the standings right now and see what's down there. It's just blue, blue, and yellow.
Okay. So
Although
it's Valiant colors.
yeah, pretty much. Well, actually, it's funny too because Vancouver is green and blue, London is predominantly blue, and then Valiant,
Is blue,
blue,
yeah.
blue and gold. So it's just like
Oh, it's
all
not gold. It's fucking Cal State blue and yellow. There
what
is no gold there.
what the fuck ever. You know what I mean.
I do. I do. I just, like I said,
If
I'm
you
doing the bitter X thing.
and that's fair, but I am completely indifferent to Cal State. I don't give a shit. It's blue and yellow, whatever the fuck adjective. I don't care. In any
And this
case,
is how we know we're hitting the end of the episode.
like I care about a very small number of things in terms of like traditional sports or like the things that matter to a lot of other people. That window is very narrow. But yeah, it's just all Valiant colors at the bottom of the board.
Yay. Glad to be out of there. Anyway, shall we do the traditional Reddit check?
Reddit check coming
See
up.
if anything has happened. Because yeah, I mean, we've got a tournament. We have the Widowmaker 1v1s. I don't think we're having any other show matches or anything. So then then we will most likely have a week off again. I haven't checked the schedule, but I
Hmm,
assume that's the case. And then
it
we're
should be.
going into yeah. And then we're going into Summer Showdown with no hero pools in sight. So we'll see
Okay.
how that plays out.
Dallas has arrived in Hawaii. Slime ate butter. Fans bought DM gifts after his retirement. Kevster is in LA, but still hiding his face.
Good for him. More power to him.
Um,
I appreciate. I can't remember who it was casting talking about. Yeah, if the Gladiators make it to Hawaii, does that mean we'll
it
finally
was
get to see
Brennan's
what
sideshow.
Kevster was? It?
Yeah,
Yeah, that would do it. Does that mean we finally get to see what Kevster looks like? And I feel like a tournament is a good time to have a reveal. But I
agreed.
also love that they have just taken this and sprinted with it.
Yeah,
Okay, is that all Reddit has to say?
that appears to be everything that's at least immediately relevant.
I think the most important news piece of that was slime eating butter, but
It's just fucking great because I can picture it so easily.
I'm picturing this happening in a cheesecake factory specifically. I could not tell you why.
Honestly, that tracks. That tracks.
Weird Egypt decor with Eye of Sauron light fixtures. Like, sure, sure.
It's fascinating to me because, like, I'll admit, like, I never really thought about like the decor of cheesecake until I saw that one article about it being like a fucking like otherworldly liminal space, and then like everybody I know agreed with it, and I'm like, I mean, I never really experienced this effect that you're talking about, but it's clearly a thing. Like,
Here's the thing about Cheesecake Factory. By all rights, as a restaurant, it should be a nightmare. The decor is mismatched and insane. They're
yeah.
always huge, but somehow always have cramped seating, and the menu is 20 pages long. By all
Oh yeah,
accounts,
it defies all
any
logic.
yeah, by all accounts, this should be a nightmare. But I really do think that someone made a Ready or Not style deal with a demon for a successful restaurant franchise, and I'm kind of waiting for someone to marry into the family and win the game of hide and seek so that the demon finishes the. It's a good movie. You should watch it. But yeah, the Cheesecake Factory should not work. And it's one of those things where, despite all odds, this is like the honeybee is not aerodynamic and should not be able to fly. And yet, that's what the Cheesecake Factory is.
I sorry, I'm just like laughing because my biggest I have not seen Ready or Not. I will admit that. And it's something that I do want to sit down and watch eventually. But the thing that my only real connection to it is the fact that the director showed up on a podcast that I listened to. The podcast, the episode in question is about a it's about a guy remembering a hit song from when he was young that no one else remembers and that he can't find any proof that it exists. And it's not like a narrative thing. It's literally he wrote into the podcast relating this story of like remembering this song, humming it, and like his wife didn't know what the fuck he was on about, but he's like, it was everywhere, and then cannot find any proof that it exists. And it's like a 30-minute effort of the guys who make the podcast, like trying to track down this song. And the guy who ends up, who the guy who wrote in was the director of Ready or Not.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. If you like, they're not necessarily home invasion movies, but they're a little bit like that. But if you like kind of crazy ass fun horror, Ready or Not, You're Next, and honestly just Scream.
The first Scream especially is so good. And for the record, I know that I didn't mention it, but the podcast is reply all. The episode is called The Case of the Missing Hit. So if anyone wants to hear what
Nice.
I just rambled about, that's what it is.
Nice. Nice. And if you're going to watch Scream, 1, 2, and 4, that's the trilogy.
You know what? Yeah, I think Scream 4 gets a bad rap. Scream 3 deserves everything that comes its way.
Ha 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 ha. Yep. All right. So, all of that in mind, CJ, where can the people find you?
At _rage_nerd on Twitter when I bother to check Twitter.
Fair. I'm Katie. You can follow me all over the social medias as well as on YouTube and Twitch at Kiaxet. That is Kiaxet. I am also on another podcast called The Rooster Team. We do all things Rooster Teeth animation and a few other things besides. The most recent project has been the 8-hour RWBY recap, which was definitely 4 different shows that we stitched together because it's nuts. So, if you ever need to get through a work shift and want to hear a lot about RWBY, that'll do it. We've also been reaching into our archives from our previous platform and releasing some of those episodes in podcast form. So that's a good time. Check it out. It's on Anchor and all of your podcasting places. Same as this is, really. Follow us on Twitter at OnThePointPod. I feel like there's more to the sign off, and I can't remember it. So I'm just going to say,
Try
get
the veal.
vaccinated. Huh?
The old like Rodney Dangerfield, like try the veal, like
Try the veal. No, I'm just going to say, get vaccinated, wear a mask, be kind to people, contact your representatives, make sure they're representing you. Black Lives Matter, AAPI Lives Matter, Happy Pride. The A does not stand for ally. Black Lives Matter and AAPI Lives Matter. We're going to say that again because it's fucking important. And get vaccinated. Be kind to each other. That is the only way we're going to get through this.
we're almost
Anything
there,
else?
people.
We're so close. So close. Stay the course. Get vaccinated, god damn it.
For the
If
love of
you are
God, please.
if and
Also,
when you are
anyone who's
able.
like, there's a microchip in it, they'll track. You're holding a fucking tracking device in your pocket at all times.
It's called your phone. And if and when you are able, I know vaccine rollout is very different in very different countries. So if and when you are able, do the thing. Have we missed anything?
I fuck if I know, dude. I can't think of anything.
Alrighty then. Let's C9.
Yikes!